change. Thank you to the skylight. So, hi. Thank you for joining us. What we're going to do is I have two cameras set up. One will be on the painting at the moment, it's on me. The other is my phone that will be on my palette. So we're going to switch to the palette and I'm going to show you the colors that I have on here. And I will, then we are going to jump over. I will let Tara know and we'll jump over to the canvas and you'll get to see my process and paint along with me. I do hope afterwards that you will send me on Facebook, either send me or on my email, your images. And if you'd like a critique or something, just let me know. Otherwise, I'll post your images on my Facebook page and we can all share that way. Okay, so over to my palette. Thank you, Tara. And I'm going to move this over to my painting. So my colors are, and I always put them in the same place. These are my general colors. You'll find as you paint, your colors may change. I'm about to change my palette a little bit, but we'll see. So Prussian blue in the corner or phthalo blue. Today I actually have both out. I'll show you a bit of the difference. If you go to my website or my Facebook page, I did do a mixing of blue demo, so you could even see the difference there. This is purple dioxazine. When you mix purple dioxazine with a cobalt blue, you get something similar to ultramarine. Could I put ultramarine on my palette along with the cobalt? Absolutely. But being a plein air painter, usually the fewer paints you have to carry, the better. Alizarin permanent, cad red medium. Sometimes I'll use light. Today I just squirted out some medium. Cad orange, cad yellow medium, lemon yellow, and I have zinc whites over here. Now I know zinc has become less stable. More and more research comes out about that. A couple of years ago, I had questioned manufacturers. They said as long as it's mixed with another color, but information keeps coming out where very often I'll mix it with a titanium white. I have a cheater color in the corner, which is a Portland gray. And I actually put on some cobalt teal because I also promised to show about glazing before the class is up. And we can go over to my painting now. Tara, if you would, please. Okay, so this is the surface I'm going to paint on. It's 12 by 16. These are called great art gloves. They get really dirty, but you can throw them in the wash and they're clean. They're just painted. This is the image for today. And this was a demo painting I did to announce the class. And I will use this to demonstrate glazing at the end of the class. This is dry. You cannot glaze with oil paints when your paints are wet. You can with acrylics. So the last 10 minutes or so, we're going to go into that and glaze. So the way I begin, and as I said, most of the time I paint plein air, is I stain my board with an orange, red color. It really doesn't matter to me which. Today I was outside painting and I stained actually a little bit of alizarin in the bottom left corner because I wanted it deeper colored there. But I like the orange. What I find is all of my other colors work well against it. I don't paint calm paintings. I like motion. I like excitement in the paintings. For those who have been with me before, you know, have heard the story, you know, I sort of make up for having lived a very calm life or quiet. You know, I was one of those shy kids. Well, I guess I've sort of gotten over it. Though working with technology is not my favorite thing. So I'm allowing the colors to get a little deeper here. In the image, there are some dark rocks. Could I put alizarin there? Sure. Could I put purple dioxide there? Sure. I don't want to go too dark. And it doesn't really matter the strokes that I'm using. In fact, there are times that I'll just put this on. When I'm painting plein air, it allows me time to absorb my environment, and I might even turn this around depending on the scene. If I'm painting trees or something, maybe this would be great for the foliage area. It's a little deeper, okay? But light for the sky. So here we go. I will sketch in. This is about all I'll do with the brush. I will sketch in the composition. I'll take some of the darker color, this composition, and I'll sketch in loosely. I just want the dynamics of the painting. I don't paint exactly what I see. Can I? Yes. In fact, every painter started out learning how to draw, how to paint. I had posted a pastel and I posted an acrylic of the same scene, pretty much the same. And somebody said, wow, you can master all these different mediums. Once you learn to draw, the medium is just a tool, okay? Can you hammer something with a hammer? Sure. Can you hammer something with a stone? Sure. It's just another tool. So that's my sketch. It's not always that elaborate, but because I'm trying to talk, I want you to see. So now I'm going to go in with my knife. Tara, if you would not mind pointing down to my palette. Okay, because we can't do two images simultaneously, I'm going to mix a few colors here. Okay, this is the Prussian. Now, the reason I used to use zinc separately from titanium is because look how rich that color is of the Prussian. Okay, I'm going to wipe off my knife. And I'm going to take a little bit of the phthalo. Can I lighten it? Sure. But you can see a difference in the color. The Prussian has more ultramarine in it. The phthalo tends towards the yellow a little bit. So if I took titanium white as opposed to zinc white and mixed it with the Prussian,
Cynthia,
yes.
I just have a question. Are you working on a canvas surface or a smooth gesso board?
This is my favorite is ampersand gesso board. And you can order from the company themselves large panels up to 4 by 8 feet. I don't because the shipping's so expensive. When I used to drive cross country, I'd stop in Texas and pick up from them directly, but I don't drive cross country anymore. Anyway, I use the ampersand gesso board. I like the smoothness of it. What you will find is if I want to scratch in, I don't know if you can see the scratches, or if I want to take a wedge, I have a really smooth surface there. Oh, I guess we'd have to flick up. You'll see when we go back to the image. Okay, so for today, I will be mixing, because I have so much zinc paint, I'm going to be mixing the zinc and titanium myself. But you can see how much whiter titanium makes the paint color. The zinc allows for the density of the paint itself to be stronger. Here is a cobalt blue. I'm just going to mix that up a little bit. And this particular one, almost looks like a ultramarine, but it's not. Different company colors will be different. Okay, now can we, let's see. Yeah, I'm not really gonna, well, you know what, while we're on the palette, I'm sorry, I will mix some of my real darks. I'm not gonna mix much on my palette. I do most of it on the painting itself. If I want to make a black, depending on what kind of black I want, I will take the Prussian or the phthalo and maybe some of the alizarin, some of the red. If I want it more towards the brown, I'll grab a bit of yellow or orange instead of red. I might throw purple dioxazine. It depends if I want it warm or cool. If I want it towards the purple, I'll throw that in. So if we can go to the canvas board or the ampersand gesso board, I'd appreciate it, Tara. Thank you. Okay. If anybody has a question, I think you're allowed to go ahead and ask.
I have a question. Can you just go over your colors one more time quickly?
Hi, Barbara. I know
Hi,
who that voice
Cynthia.
is.
Hi.
Yes, Prussian blue.
Yep.
Purple dioxazine.
Yep.
Actually, on my workshop page, I have a workshop coming up at the Southern Vermont Art Center. I have the colors listed there.
Okay.
But alizarin permanent, which is a more stable, more recently manufactured alizarin crimson. This is a cad red medium, cad orange, cad yellow medium, lemon yellow, which is what I prefer to cad light. It has more acid in it. I don't really need it as much for this image because it's so blue and the lights are more orange, but I've been painting outside a lot in Vermont and it's green. I really like the acid in the lemon. I have a phthalo blue. I don't usually have Prussian and phthalo on my palette at the same time. But for those who have them, or one or the other, I wanted to be able to show the difference in colors here.
Okay.
Here's a cobalt blue. This particular manufacturer of cobalt, it has a lot of red in it, but you can see the difference in the blues. I mean, paint is wonderful. If you're a palette knife painter, you really want to love paint as much as you do the image. I have on a cheater color. I don't always have on my palette. It's Gamblin's Portland Gray. And I call it a cheater color because at the end of the day, if you clean your palette, take all the colors, mix them together, you will get a gray color. But because and that you can use to start off with the next day. Because it's a fresh palette, I don't have any pre-mixed gray. So I pulled up some of the Portland gray because there's so much gray in this particular image. So I'm gonna cheat and use that. So, and then I have some cobalt teal or radiant teal. And that's just for later on because I'm going to show glazing. I may use it in here. In fact, since I have it here, I'm going to put it right here so you can see how close these two colors are. This is the phthalo blue, cobalt teal. Look how similar they are. If I mix cobalt teal with white, basically I'm going to get the same color. Okay, the reason I have it on my palette is for when I glaze the older painting that I did the other day, the one that's dry. So this has a wee bit more yellow in it. Hopefully you can see the difference. Any other questions before I start to throw the paint on my canvas? Okay, back to the gesso board. The reason I use it is because you can see how smooth it is. If I was using a canvas, I would have some ripples in it. This stroke was made with this wedge, okay? Once the paint's dry, I can't really lift off the paint. But I made that stroke while the paint was still wet. And so, you know, I could lift some of it off, okay? It's a fun tool, but just brought that out to show you. Anyway, I'm gonna throw some orange back in here. Not very particular. And I'm gonna start to paint. This actually, I sort of did make an error. This is the number 46 palette knife. This is the 50, okay? So these are palette knives. It's RGM palette knives, but Liquidtech makes one similar. Blick now carries them. So I'm going to start with my dark colors. Traditionally, I mean, most painters start laying in their darks. For those of you who had bought my video, you know, I do what's called a no tan, and it shows you laying in the values, a really quick thing. So I'm just going to throw this in. I'm not very particular. It's how I paint. I'm going to follow my gut. I know this rock has some shadow here, so I'm going to, whoops, put that there. This rock has some shadows along this edge. I'm going to bring them in here. I'm using these dark colors a little bit devil may care. I'm not being specific because I'm going to be layering over them anyway. For those who came a little bit later, these are the Great Art gloves. There are some rocks in here, some dark. It doesn't really matter exactly where they are. And now I'm going to go take some of my mixed blue. This has a little bit of purple dioxazine on it. I'm going to get some of my, what we call mid-tones. I'm just grabbing them off my palette and laying them on. Once again, I'm not being very specific. If I was a traditional painter, even this bottom layer would not be very specific. If I pick up a color here, maybe for here, I would put that in. And I would get these lines in, the ripples, okay? I'm not a traditional painter. I'm going to say, okay, my clouds are here. Now these clouds, the directionality is this way a little bit. I'm going to push it up and emphasize this cloud towards the right. Western culture, and I'm sorry for those who have listened to me before, but for those who haven't, I will repeat this. Western culture, we read left to right. So your viewer is going to come into your canvas somewhere in the middle. You don't want them coming off the page here. You want them to come in and come around. Your corners are pretty irrelevant. I can cut these corners off. They don't really matter. I have a painting I was working on today where I actually have light in the corner. But given what's going on elsewhere, that's just to help pick up the color. You want your viewer's eye to move around. I'm going to, just to show a bit of difference, I'm going to pick up some red in here. So I'm going to move these clouds in that kind of direction. And I'm going to, so I'm going to bring your viewer here, bring them around, up, up, back down, and into the painting. You keep going like that spiral. It's similar to what's called the Fibonacci spiral, but I'm going in reverse. And the Fibonacci spiral has some mathematical formulas, and it gets really small here. I want my center of interest here. So think of a conch shell and how it spirals around. That's where you want your viewer to be in your painting. You don't want them going off the page. So I'm just picking up some of this blue paint that I mixed earlier. And I definitely need to bring some of it up into the sky, because this has to relate. Doesn't have to be the same color, but the reason my slightly more abstract paintings, according to Eric Rhodes, they're abstract, work is because I make all these colors relate. So while I have one color on my knife, I will go figure out where can I put that color to keep the viewer into the painting. So I'm just mixing a bit more blue. See that dark there? We call them happy accidents. I have learned to control, to a degree, the stripes on my knife. Even though this hill back here does not have that, for the sake of the painting, I'm going to leave it. I like the stripedness right there. And it's something I am getting into more and more. The more you paint, you will find your voice, and you will find what makes your paintings a little bit different from somebody else's. And that's actually a good thing. If you look through history, no matter how abstract a painter was, they all started out. I can't think of a single painter who did not start out with traditional skills, a single painter that's renowned. Okay. So I'm going to bring a little bit of light, and I'm going to raise these rocks up. They're a little bit low. I don't want them to cut my canvas smack in the center. Here to there, pretty much the same size. I want to lift these rocks up. So I'm going to bring the light over. Now this is why I said that your bottom layer can be really rough. And if you do watch even the traditional portrait people that Streamline has on, you can see how many changes they make. You know, by the end of the day, painters are tired because they're constantly troubleshooting. Any questions? That means everybody's busy working. Sounds good to me.
That's what it looks like from my end too, Cynthia.
Okay, perfect. If I'm going too fast, do feel free to slow me down. This is a really small canvas for me. This is a 12 by 16. My go-to size is 16 by 20. Though I've started to do some minis, because now that I have to ship everything, since I'm not going to events, and you know, the economy is not as good, people are buying minis, and they're a lot less expensive to ship.
Cynthia, we have a question.
Yeah.
How long should you wait to put your second layer in oil?
You don't. My base layer, my stain, is a Galkid Gamsol mix. Whether you use liquid or turpentine and walnut oil, it really doesn't matter. Some mediums dry slower than others. But when I tried to scrape that red, that orange with this, it's already dried. It dries in a matter of minutes. If you're using a medium, if I was outside using solvent-free gel, my surface would be much more slippery. which I wouldn't like. But that's, you sort of learn how your mediums react to the environment. Working inside, you don't have the same issue unless, like me, you don't have air conditioning and your house is really hot. But anyway, you don't have to wait. I don't find the orange ill-affecting this color, and I always choose to leave some of the orange showing. That's just because I like how it makes the other colors sort of jump a little bit more. So I'm going to give people a bit of time to catch up. I'm going to make some of my own gray. By taking a little bit of different colors, pretending they were all over my palette. Just to show you. Okay. Tara, can you jump down on my palette for a second, please? This is a gray I just made by mixing a little bit of leftover colors, a little bit of alizarin and a little bit of whatever's over here. I just grabbed it, took a tiny bit of orange. That's my gray versus Gamblin's Portland gray. So it shows you how a gray can be made just from mixing what's on your palette. If I wanted this cooler, if I wanted to get more blue into it, I'd steal a bit more blue. And you can see these colors are virtually the exact same. So you don't really need to buy the gray, but it's a great cheater color to have, particularly if you go out in the field where the light's going to change. I'm actually now going to use that gray. I'm going to mix a little bit of yellow and orange and red. I want to get some of the sand color. Okay, so there we go. Tara, if you want to go back to my canvas, please.
Absolutely.
I use the term canvas loosely. It is a gesso board. So please excuse me, it's just from yours. So there's my beach color, okay?
Cynthia, another question. What did you mix to get the first orange brown that you used?
A dirty brush. This
Excellent.
truly, there is no orange brown, so to speak. It's called a dirty brush. I used a brush to put on the orange, and that's just cad orange. And I went down here and picked up a little bit of cad red and brushed it on. What happened then was when I took my small brush, it's my small brush, I hope people can see it. Can people see this? Oh, no, you're looking at the painting. I'm sorry. Okay, yeah, that's my small brush. I went to sketch in. I just dipped the brush in a little bit of my solvent and took a little bit of the Prussian or purple, and that mixed with the orange, it sort of made a brownish color. Okay, then I just ran it over here. You can see if I do that, you know, it sort of becomes a dirty color. If I wanted to make this a very representational painting, one, I'd use a brush and I would smooth all this out. If you go look up close at a lot of representational paintings, you can see the artist has used the underlayer. So if I wanted to make this more representational, you know, I would either mix on my palette or I'd mix on the painting and I'd start to paint in the clouds that way, okay? The muted colors you get are the result of working one color into another. And so this outlining that I had, this rough stuff here, that's just a result from having dipped my brush into a little bit of the phthalo, and with the wet orange background and a lot of solvent, I was able to lay in my sketch. Okay, if I was doing a more traditional painting, this is where I would go. Okay, I would gradually feel my way around the painting, lightening the colors as I go. Now, I have a lot of paint on here. The palette knife lays a lot of paint onto your canvas, far more paint than a brush normally would, because your brush, you're dipping in solvent to keep the paint fluid. My knife, I don't use solvent as I paint. I just grab the paint and lay it on. Okay, so it's a, you use more paint, it's a thicker paint, but it's what gives you the intensity of color. Look at what happens when I put the white on with the knife. Here's the white with the brush. I would have to do several layers. With the knife, it comes on that much more intensely right from the start. Okay. There is no right way to paint. Not in the 21st century. I mean, for those who know a little bit of art history, the Impressionists were not allowed in the salon. Okay, they were horrors. You know, the traditional painters, it's like, what are you doing? And now we have them in our museums. Okay, that just tells you really that it's not the right way as much as it is a choice that we get to make by living when we do. There are guidelines, though. There are compositional rules. You do not want, well, let me back up. If you put something smack in the center of your painting, you need to be aware of what it does to the image. If you have something important coming off the edge of the painting, you need to be aware of what it's going to say to the viewer, how it's going to help or hurt your composition. Okay, so those are the kinds of rules. There's perspective rules, and it's why even abstract painters tend to have traditional backgrounds. I know how to make a building look like a building. The first show I ever had was almost photographically real drawings. I mean, people walked into the show and they thought they were looking at photos. And then I just went crazy. So now we have what I do now. Some people think it's crazy, but it's how I paint. It's how I choose to paint. And if I can make a living painting the way I choose to, why change it? For those who want to make a living from art, it's hard. And you have to have a certain temperament to know, you may not know where the next paycheck's coming. I sighed a big sigh of relief today when I got word that I sold $9,000. And it's like, whew, now I know where my property tax money's coming from. So as you can see, I'm just building up. My colors are still fairly non-specific. I'm still working on getting the groundwork in for the painting.
Cynthia?
Yes,
We just had a request if we could maybe just pause for a moment and do run
sure,
through on the steps that we've done till now.
absolutely,
Great, thanks.
absolutely. Okay, so to begin with, I stained my board orange into the red. And the reason I chose red was because this bottom corner of the image is darker and the red is dark. It won't allow for as much light to come through. Paint molecules bounce against each other. These whites will be warmer because of the orange background than if I were to put them over a dark background. Okay, so when I say warmer, think of the sun and think of the warmth of a sunny day. When I use the term cold, think of the winter and how blue it is. Everything's icy blue. Okay, so warmth refers to that nice yellow orangey glow here. This paint will have more orange to it, even though this is really thin, because your molecules bounce. If you're using acrylics, they're translucent, so that orange will really show through. And in fact, I tell people if you're painting with acrylics, use gesso for your really white whites, because acrylic medium, unless you draw everything out like you would in watercolor and put your white acrylic paint on top of a white surface, you're going to have that white showing what's behind it. But gesso is opaque. Anyway, I then took my back up. I then took a small brush, holding the head in front of the deep purple so you can see it. I took the small brush and I sketched in. I took this shape here, I took this here and made a line across here. You can see a little bit of the rough sketch from the rocks here and here. And over here, you can still see some of these are all those sketchy lines. Non-specific, it's just telling me there's a rock there. I took the brush and sketched in billowy, rounded clouds, just to get the sense of that. So that's what I did. You can see some of this gray color, which is the result of dipping my brush while the orange was still wet into a little bit of purple or phthalo blue with a lot of solvent and just sketching lightly. After that, I took my knife and, following a very traditional format, I went and blocked in my darks roughly, because as you can see, I'm already painting over them. But these tell me where I want my darks to be. Here, here, here. And my dark is more solid on the shadowy parts of the rock. This part here. Okay. I went in after the darks to put in what we call the mid-tone. If you were to take your photo and put it on your phone and turn it to black and white, your grays are your mid-tone. This whole massive area is basically mid-tone except for the light here. So this hill, this horizon line, everything here is basically mid-tone. I did not paint the grays in yet because I had blue on my knife. I can take some of the gray now because there's gray in here and throw some in. With a flick of the flick of the wrist. I had a bit of a lisp as a kid. Every now and then it comes through. So up here, I use the brush to sort of show laying in with a brush as opposed to the knife. It's a thinner paint. But now I'm going to go in, and I threw in the lights with the knife. I need light here. Now I'm going to go in and start to refine the painting and turn it into something other than what I really consider my base layer of paint. It actually takes longer to paint with a palette knife than with a brush. I work quickly. All plein air painters work quickly because you go outside at a certain time of day and you're going to lose the light. The light will change. It will be consistent for the longest period of time at high noon because it's overhead. But you learn to paint quickly. If I'm going to paint early in the morning or late evening because I want sunset, you have 10 minutes of constant light. It changes that fast. Anyway, so now I'm going to start to throw in more detail. I'm going to take some of the grays and put them in here. And it's a little bit like sculpting. I'd love to know how many people are using a knife versus a brush. Do people want to see a lot more brush work? Can people somehow let me know if they want to see more brush work specifically?
No, knife sounds great.
Okay. Anybody can speak up and let me know. Okay. So what I'm doing right now is I'm mixing more gray. I do have that Portland gray. As I said, it's a wonderful cheater color, but I love to mix paint. So I'm going to throw some gray here. I made it a little bit warmer. And by warmer, once again, it has a bit more yellow in it. I want it warmer by the seashore, by the coast, sorry, by the water's edge. I'm going to start to throw it in between some of the rocks. Now the sand here is very blue, but you can see there's a lot of yellow in this gray right here. And while I have a light gray on my knife, I'm going to jump around. I'm going to put some in here. I'm going to put some in here. Everywhere else that I'm seeing light gray. Decision time. I almost was going to put the gray here, right here. If I did, I would have been dividing my canvas in half, right here to over there, exactly half. So I don't want to put the gray where I was going to. I'm going to move it over. I want some of that gray, but I'm going to move it over. And I'm going to bring it off the edge of the page some. These are the kinds of spontaneous decisions that you'll make and check with yourself, which is why most artists after a day of painting and anybody taking workshops after a day of painting is usually really tired because you're constantly checking, do I really want that in the center? So I'm going to make some more gray. Tara, can we move just for a second to my palette, please? Okay, so I started to make a gray, but look how yellow this color is, because I just started, I grabbed from some of the yellow. And what I'm going to do before I bother to darken it is I'm going to throw some more yellow and orange in. And put it in here because There's some light hitting these rocks.
Where's here? We need the other screen.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. You're right. You do.
Sorry, Cynthia.
No, I forgot to tell you. Okay, so I'm putting it in here to suggest the light that's here on the edge of these rocks. Okay?
And Cynthia, we had a question about the mid-tone blue. How
Yes.
was that made?
It's a mixture. I have some Prussian blue in here with white. Okay, I'm gonna, I'll mix them up. Put it on my knife so you can see. Prussian blue with white. I'm going to throw some in here just so you can see. And in fact, I'll put some in here. And since I'm putting it in there, in order to carry the eye around, I'm going to put it in here. Remember, I had said that there was the sand over here had gotten much more blue. So I'm going to wipe my knife off and put it there. But it's basically Prussian blue with white. And then I went to the phthalo blue. This blue has a lot more green to it. That's phthalo blue. The Prussian blue has more gray to it. Since you're going to have access to this video after the fact, you can go back and look at the beginning or go to my website or my Facebook page and find my demo on mixing blues. And you can see the difference between the Prussian and the phthalo. I actually have Prussian, phthalo, cobalt, and ultramarine on the demo. So it's on my website. It's also on my Facebook page. Okay, so I'm going to keep taking a little bit of this yellow and throw it in here. And I'm letting it blend in with the blue because yellow and blue makes for a type of green. And I want some back in the back of the hillside over here. Now I'm going to throw a little bit of orange into that color. It's similar to a yellow ochre for those who use yellow ochre. I don't buy yellow ochre because it's so easy to sort of make. And I am just sort of swiping these colors in. Now I am going to throw more orange in, and you'll see I'm mixing it into that same ochre color, and I'm going to start to get the suggestion of these little ridges here, which are over here. Once again, I'm very non-specific. You know, when I teach a workshop, I start out on a piece of newsprint and I draw a circle. And I ask people, what is it? Well, it's a circle. And if I put a couple rays around it, it's the sun. Now, if I put two dots in the middle, that circle becomes a face. So we, in our brain, have this common language. If I take some of this ochre color that I had made, and I make a rectangle or square here, things in nature, I mean, unless you're looking at the structure of rocks close up, things in nature are not perfectly square. Manufactured things by human beings are. So that implies a building there. You don't really have to tell the viewer anything more. That already says building. Do I need to show the details on it? Not really. But I want that edge clean. because I want it to read as a building. We have a common language, you know, we see signs all the time. You see a stop sign, you don't even need to see that it's red. If we see that shape, our brain says, stop sign. Okay, so that was going to read as a building. Do I have to put it exactly in here? No, not the way I paint. If I wanted to make it exact, could I? Sure. But that's not the kind of image I want. I want the suggestion, I want the impression. I don't need the details. It's part of the joy of knife painting is the enjoyment of working with a knife. So what I'm doing now is I'm gradually going in. It's very subtle, but I'm gradually going in and adding more information into this dark hill. Not a lot, just enough to suggest some modulation. If I wanted to, hold on a second. If I wanted to paint a tree, everybody can see that, yeah. You know, this is a tree, okay? It's what our brain's gonna read. You know, I can add all sorts of detail. I can say, oh, little bits of light or, you know, edges, what have you. But it's gonna read as a tree. You know, I throw something out like that, it's gonna read as a branch. How are we doing time-wise, Tara, may I ask?
It is just about 6 o'clock, so we have an hour still.
Okay, so I best keep moving. Where else, while I have the ochre colored mix, is there any other place I want to put it? Not really. I want to keep it more specific here. I'm going to throw a little bit of it into the water for interest and to help carry the viewer around the painting. But not enough to really be noticeable. It's just enough to help the viewer's eye move around the painting. I am manipulating the viewer's eye. Okay, now I need to start to fill in some. If we're already an hour in and I want to save the last 10 minutes, I need to start filling in. I'm going to allow some of the orange to show through. So I'm just going to mix up a little bit more blue. I'm taking some of my phthalo. I'm going to take some of the cobalt, and I'm going to take a tiny bit of purple dioxazine to cool it up. I want to get some more light into the water. And I don't want it quite as sort of on the green shade as what's there. Okay, here we go. Okay, so I've gotten some more of this purple tone. I kept that to the right. I'm going to cut into these rocks a little bit more and make it feel a little bit more rocky over here. Make it more irregular. But along the top, I'm going to use this angle to move the viewer. They're going to move down and then up over this rock. This rock here is not rounded. I want it to be rounded here to help keep the center focal point. I've got to get these rocks in here. I'm getting some more light in the water. Whoops, sorry. Oh, actually you didn't see it. I had my phone on my palette. So I'm going to throw some of this lighter gray in here into the sky. Now, as you watch me use the knife, be aware that I change the direction when I lay my paint down. I want this cloud here to move this way. So I'm going to hold my knife on that kind of an angle. I want this here. So I'm going to turn my knife on this kind of an angle. I am going to let this fade out a little bit. You'll see how I'll deal with that a little later. But I definitely need more light in the clouds. Okay, that's got too much gray in it. I picked up some purple along the way. I want a clean white. I don't want it bright, bright white, so I'm going to let it sort of smear in. I will save my brightest whites for the very end. Does it matter that this is not carried through? Not in my book. Okay, I like these little stepping stones, is how I refer to them. And I will bring the viewer's eye down here even more. Eventually, I'll warm this up down here. But that will be towards the finishing. But I'm being careful. I mean, you think about each stroke I make, or you make as you paint. This is where you really have a lot of decisions to make. As you can see, I'm moving all around. I'm not painting one specific spot. If you're painting what's a trompe-l'oeil, which is you're painting a still life to look exactly the way it is, and you need your colors exacting, you may choose to paint one section at a time. You know, you mix the color and let's say you're painting a Jack in the Box. Well, it's the perfect kind of red. You get that whole Jack in the Box painted. But the way I paint, and if you're painting plein air, keep moving all around. I like that streak there. I don't want to ruin it. I want to settle things down a little bit in here. A horizontal line will settle your image. A vertical or diagonal line tends to be more exciting. So I'm throwing some horizontals in order to settle it. It will make for a calmer painting. Okay, I need to get these rocks in for sure. Can we go to my palette for a minute, please? Thank you. So I took some Prussian, I took some phthalo, took a bit of orange, this rock over here. I'm just gonna throw it in. So I'm gonna grab some more of that. Prussian, phthalo, purple, mix it up. What do I get? With the orange, I get like a green. That's too green. If I add more red, it will get more brown. I need it lighter so you guys can see what that color is. I want the warmth of that reddish brown. I'm going to put some over here and here. I don't care that the rocks look exactly like the rocks in the photo. That's irrelevant to the painting. You're doing a portrait, it better look like the person. You're doing the White House, it better look like the White House. You know, the Statue of Liberty, you want it to look like the Statue of Liberty. You're doing a rock or a tree, unless it's some famous structure, you know, maybe an ancient old redwood that everybody, that's iconic image in everybody's mind, it has to look like it. Otherwise, have fun. Let the rock have the rockiness of a rock. You know, you want some angles to it. I'm going to cut into this, you'll see. But right now I'm getting the darks in. Something to be aware of. I do not want this space here to be the same width as this rock here, which is the same width of this rock there. Okay, that's the kind of stuff that you learn as you become more and more experienced. It's like a detail kind of thing. So those are the changes that now I better fix. I can steal some of this and add this little rock that's down here. That brought this gap closer, so I don't have dump, 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 dump. Okay, you don't want a repetition of form unless you're trying to impress on the viewer some kind of repetition in the image. And there is none here. So now I'm going to step back. While I have a little bit of dark paint on my knife, I'll steal some from here. Well, I'll add a little bit here. Here. Yeah, there's a little bit of dark on the sand where the seaweed comes. It's a sweet little detail. I'll throw more sand color in here. Now is a good time to step back from your painting so you can assess it. Don't ever paint with your face 2 feet from your painting and think that you really see what's going on. Okay? Or if you're a painter who sits while you paint, use your phone, take a photo of your painting, because we have these phones now, makes life a lot easier. Take a photo of your painting, turn your back away from the painting, or at least your face away from the painting, and look at the image in your phone. It will give you a much better idea of what's going on in your painting. You can't have your face 2 feet from a painting and really see what the painting's looking like to somebody who's going to walk into a room at 15 feet away. So now's a good time to say, okay, what does my painting really look like? What do I need to do to it? I have all of the paint on here, basically that I need, but what's it really looking like? And that is why painting with a palette knife in a way takes longer. I can cover the ground much faster with a brush than I can with a knife. So if you're in a rush, in fact, last spring, I was at an event in Hartford, Maryland, and I don't like quick draws, even though I can paint quickly, partly because I like to paint larger paintings. I'm sorry, I'm going to hang that up. It's sorry about that. The one call I get during the day from a house line, because it's cheaper to have a house line than it isn't. Let's see. Somebody remind me of what I was talking about. Yikes. So I'm going in with some more details right now. Oh yes, I was talking about the brush. I can cover ground a whole lot faster with a brush. In fact, I'll show you how fast I could do it. I could take some paint here and go, whoop. Okay, that was fast. I just covered in all that red, or most of it, as much as I really care to. And it took 2 seconds. So a brush is faster. So I was talking about this event. So I don't like quick draws. Quick draws are at events where you have 2 hours in which to paint, and you have to frame the painting, and then you show the painting, and they give awards. Well, I really don't like quick draws. 1, I like to paint larger. 2, they're always held in town, because part of the reason for them is to build community interest in what's going on. And it's a fabulous reason. And they're never, I don't think they're ever mandatory, but I always participate in spite of the fact that I really don't like them, because it's really good to get the community interested in art and what's going on. But I really, they're usually either the first event or the very last thing of a week-long painting plein air event. So this was at the end of the event. It's a quick draw, and I just, artists are tired after they're painting for 5 or 7 days for a competition. So it's like, you know what? I don't really want to do it, but I know I should do it because it really helps the organizers, and it's good for raising community interest and support for artists. So I went and I took a 16 by 20 inch, which is really too large to do with a palette knife in a 2-hour span of time. So I took a 16 by 20, I went to this farmer's market and I took a brush and painted the painting, and it ended up winning first place. It does not look like my painting, so to speak, because it's not a knife painting. But it was a way for me to have fun. It didn't really matter in my mind. One, I never expect to win, but I could cover that surface with a brush faster. So it worked. So now I have to decide what to do here. I don't want this rock so high. The good thing about the phone call is I got to stand back from the painting. So I'm gonna scrape this down a little bit, get rid of that. I keep wiping my knife, which is why I keep reaching over here, just in case anyone's wondering. Please feel free to ask questions if you have any. And I'm going to bring some medium blue over. Tara, can you tell me when we have about 15 minutes left or a 20-minute point?
Absolutely.
Thank you. Because I do want to show about glazing. I promise I'd show glazing.
You also said you were going to talk about water mixables at some point.
Yeah, I'm actually going to do a workshop on it. The nice thing about water mixable oils is that you can sort of sketch and do thin paint against thick paint. But I decided, I mean, I don't want to make people take workshops they don't want to, but I'm going to do a whole workshop on it because after thinking about it, it would just be so much better to do that. Does that bother you? I want to make sure. Is that okay?
Delights me.
Okay, good.
Sign me up.
Yeah, I told Tara I would get her an image by tomorrow, I think. Yeah, it may be Saturday.
No problem, Cynthia. So, Cynthia, we do have another question.
Yeah.
Someone was asking that you don't seem to have a specific sequence of the process, like back to front or top to bottom. It seems like you work all over at the same time. Is that accurate?
That is accurate. And the reason being, when I first started painting, I mean, I'm a self-taught painter. I mean, I know how to draw, but, you know, and I had drawings in galleries and shows and things. When it comes to paint, I'm really self-taught, but in high school when I painted, I actually took art class in high school, and my paintings were super realistic. In fact, I had an artist steal one so he could claim that it was a work he did. He actually stole two pieces. One was pastel and the oil painting. The pastel I got back, the oil painting, he disappeared. But yeah, those were traditional base layer, build up, detail and all. The way I paint, my interest is in the movement of color. And I joined these Facebook plein air pages when I first started to paint. Just an FYI, as I'm talking, I'm going to throw a tiny bit of yellow and orange into my white to make the white brighter. It will stand out more and warm it up. But Ed Turpening, who runs one of the plein air pages, took one of my paintings And he said, whoa, it even works on a value scale. Well, I didn't know what a value scale was because terminology I didn't really know. I just sort of painted. Never having studied painting in school and all that stuff. I didn't know what it was, and I looked it up, and it's like value scale. Okay, the black and white, the scales, black and white and grays. The reason it holds together, in spite of the fact that I might have 50 colors on my palette, none of which are blended, is that I move the color around. So whatever color's here, I have here, 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 in that tiny little spot, in here, I'm moving it around. And so it is a non-traditional way of painting. If I were painting something traditionally, I would start with the idea of the no-tan, that is figuring out my darks, my midtones, my lights, laying in thinly the darks. If you look at a Rembrandt painting, his dark colors are really thin. His light colors are really thick. The traditional way to paint is to put your darks in thinly and then gradually build up your lights. The way I'm painting, I keep moving around. And so even though the paintings are far more abstract, they hold together with traditional guidelines. So that's why, you know, I do keep moving around. So I know, like here, I want to create that sense of hill. So I have to, because it's a fairly dark color, I have to add some light behind it. Now I refer to something like this as a tension point, where you're consciously making a decision to have something sharp and then let it fade out. I don't need to outline this whole hill. I can let it disappear into the cloud. But as long as I show part of it, what I was saying before, the viewer's eye, we have a common language, you're going to read that as a hill. What I don't want is what's happened. You see this dark here? It's made this light here become like a line. I don't want a line. I don't want any sense of it being a line. So I need to bleed it up into the dark and break that sense of line. I'm going to throw a little bit of red into it just to make it a prettier, softer color in here. And to add a little more color to the painting. Now, if I'm putting red there, I've already got red here. It's in the background. I'm going to throw a little bit of red in here. Just a little bit. Barely noticeable to the viewer, but enough that's there for the viewer's eye to pick up on it. I'm going to throw a little bit in here. I want to clean this up a little bit. I want to get, I have that ochre color. I want some lights here to get a sense of rocks. So I am moving my eye around, troubleshooting what needs to happen to make it a better painting. And I'm going to make it more colorful. I'm going to add a lot more really striking. Does it say it's a rock? Does it say it's a building? It's just an amorphic shape, and it's really just light that I'm adding. So it's very non-specific. If I wanted to say specifically a building, I would have to use a brush or be painting this much larger. But I want light over here. And I'm going to end up throwing a little bit of orange in just a minute. I'm getting light. I want to enhance the color and get some orange into the hill right in here. Also, feel free to email me with questions after the class if you have some. It may take me a few days to respond because I have paintings due to galleries, but don't ever hesitate to, send me an email and ask a question. Now I know this is very light here. I'm going to have to step back and see if I like it. I want to throw some more light texture into here. I'm going to throw, well, that building could get a bit lighter. Yep, that building needs to get a little bit lighter. I'm going to take a little bit of orange, a little bit of cad yellow medium, and titanium white. That makes that building much more noticeable, but I need to clean up the bottom edge. If I wanted to put a chimney in, I could. I'd just take a knife, scrape out a little bit, and put some of a red brick color in. So I guess I should do that since I went ahead and scraped it out. I want to push that building back, put some land in front of it. Okay, I need to clean this up here. Let me get more blue over here. I'm going to bring it down a little bit so the rocks aren't so high. And get some more white light into it. Now this rock juts out on an angle, and in my original painting, I did pick up on that angle, on this demo painting. I left some of that rock up here. I'm going to flatten it out a bit here. Just by throwing some light in there. And I need to throw a little bit more light. Right up here. I'm going to swing it this way to get that movement horizontal more. I don't like that little tiny dark dot. Lots of mini decisions going on. It sort of looks like I'm running haywire, but it's actually very conscious decisions. And I'm going to bring that down. I also want to change this angle here, maybe to suggest that there's a space in here. So it becomes two rocks and not one. As I said, if it's a famous rock, you have to paint it the way it is. This isn't a famous rock, it's just some rocks. I'm going to let that dry for a second and get a little bit more blue in there. I could clean up in here a little bit. I could also throw a little bit of wispy clouds in, just to break up that strong texture. And I think I want to add some light in here. Yeah. Any questions? So the decision to add light in here, the angle's coming this way. It's just, oh, look at that dark streak. I don't want that streak there. Very often, I will throw a different color in the sky. And in fact, I'm going to today, just to sort of show you what it does. I will pick up on a color that's in the painting. In this case, it's sort of the ochre that's on the beach. And I'm going to throw it into the sky.
Cynthia,
Yes.
we have a question on if you are intending to smooth the sand on the lower left side.
Good question. I have to step back from the painting more to see it. I think I want to add a little bit more light here. I don't need that much orange. No, I'm not. I'm going to leave it rough, partly because it's coming up. And as I said, corners are pretty irrelevant to your painting. Then I'll have to decide whether I sign here or here. Back in the 70s, I went through a stage, I stopped painting after the 70s, but of not signing my paintings, only signing them on the back. Because my feeling is I'm creating an image. My name is not part of that image. So I really did not like having my name on a painting. But now I sign it. I'm going to throw some more color into this here. This rock needs more color on the side. To get a sense of, a little bit of sense of light hitting it. Now I'm going really fast. I mean, in all honesty, if this was a real painting and not a demo, I would be stepping back a lot to take a look at it. Okay, I don't like this dark here. So I'm going to throw some light in here. That is too dark. It may have been the rock, but as I'm forming this painting, I don't want that dark there. This may be too light, what I'm going to add on. I'm going to take cobalt blue and some dirty white paint. That worked perfectly. It's the same color. I have to get rid of this little piece of dark. It could read as a rock. I could make that little triangle a rock, or I could get rid of it. I think the painting would be better without it. So I'm just going to cover it. So it's all sorts of little weird details that go into painting. I'll get a little more sand color. How are we doing for time?
It is almost 6:35, so about
good.
5 minutes
Good.
till you start glazing.
Yeah, we're good. So I'm going to create the shape of the rocks more. And I'm going to bring up the edge of that rock. These are the kinds of decisions. I should step back. Yep, I'm just taking a bit of purple dioxazine mixed with a bit of the Prussian blue. And I'm basically creating a rock that's not there for the sake of the painting. And if I'm going there, I'm going to bring this little triangular shape. So shapes in my personal vocabulary have a reason. This triangular shape, even though it's very subtle, is a directional. I mean, if you think about it, an arrow, it has that pointed shape. We always look at something that looks like an arrow, and interpret it as go this way. So I use that kind of common vocabulary in my painting. I perceive, oops, I scraped into that. This is why I like gesso board. If I wanted to add some reeds, I could scrape some reeds. Can you see that, the scratches I did? Can people see that? That's the nice thing about having such a smooth gesso board, or the gesso board. That's why I like it. Okay, I need to step back and see if I want this white light square. In my mind, an arrow is like a triangle. If I had a triangular shape pointing up, that's going to send the viewer up. This one is sending the viewer across. A square in my brain is a resting point. A circle acts as a target. If I were to put a circular shape in here, it's going to act like a target. You know, people are going to look at that circle and sort of get stuck in it. I need to get rid of this triangular shape that's pointing up here. I want more white to move the viewer around. So I'm going to extend some of these whites. Constant decision making. I really should not be making these decisions without stepping back. But I'm sort of on. I want some more turquoise in here. I just saw that turquoise there. I like that. So I can either take my phthalo, or I can take this little bit of cobalt teal that I happen to put on my palette and throw that in. I need to smooth the light out that's coming in here. So I'm still constantly making decisions, little minuscule decisions. What's working, what's not working. This has a big sweep down and it comes around, but I want to calm it down a little bit. As I said, things that are horizontal tend to calm the viewer down. So I'm going to bring a bit of light across more horizontally. And I want to add a little bit of a sense of a rock in here. Too much light. I don't want this shape. Right now, it's about 1/2 inch wide for almost an inch. I don't want that way. I've got to bring that like down and cut into it. These are, as I said, even if you paint abstractly, these are like the little tiny rules that you get to learn. You don't want your shapes all consistent. What's that do to a painting? You know, I talked about having the space before that was even here, same width as the rock, same width as the space between, same width as that rock. That's a no-no, even if you paint abstractly, which is why, you know, these are the kinds of things that you learn taking workshops or taking classes or going to art school. Or reading, however you learn best, or just by doing. Okay, I just stepped back a minute and I saw this dark leaching down in here. I don't want that leaching down because it's going to drive the viewer's eye down. So I need to clean that up. And these constant little changes and troubleshooting is why you'll be tired when you finish a painting. So I painted with Barbara. You still there, Barbara? Maybe, maybe not. Okay, I just pulled a little bit of light blue here. I want to cover up this orange and bring some more light blue in here. So every time you do something, you might see something else that would relate to it. Okay, so I just stepped back and looked at this. I also don't like that in there. So I need to get a little bit more color in here, but I want it to be a little different. So I'm going to take a little bit of that.
Oh, sorry, Sin, I was muted. I couldn't get myself off of mute.
Oh, okay.
It's
Were
Barbara.
you
Yes,
tired
I'm
after, were you tired after we painted a week or two ago?
yes, of course I was. I'm tired now.
Yeah, that's what painting is, you know? You definitely feel you could be painting. I mean, I managed a tea shop in Vail in my youth, and it probably took me 8 hours to get tired. I could do a painting in 3 hours and be exhausted. So, you know, people don't quite get it, but
And
don't
people
be.
say, oh, wow, so relaxing. Oh, you painted all day? How relaxing.
I know, it's so funny. I was painting at this event in Florida, and the Jupiter event, and I was out on the beach, and it's, you know, 85 degrees in the shade, and they had, it was wonderfully set up in terms of the volunteers were coming around with water. They were finding artists. Unbelievable. I'm sorry. One sec.
You're popular.
So I'm painting, and you know, it's 85 degrees in the shade. It's wicked hot. I mean, maybe it was warmer than that. I don't remember. But, you know, there were a bunch of us there painting. And one of the volunteers comes by and says, would you like some water? And it says, yes, thank you so very much. That's great. I mean, what a treat to have volunteers passing out water to painters. That's not really the norm.
Okay, Cynthia.
And she said, are you having fun? And I said, it's work. I mean, it is work when you're painting to earn a living. This is work.
Hey,
And she-
Cynthia,
Yes,
just wanted to give you a heads up. We're at almost 15 minutes.
okay. So I'm just going to add a little bit of light under these clouds here. And I'm changing the color. I'm getting a little bit of purple in it. And then I'm going to stop this and I need it lighter to sort of show the glazing. But anyway, you know, the volunteer said, oh, that's just what the other artist said. Because it is work. It's constantly thinking. It's tiring. I mean, it's wonderful. We are blessed the fact that we can get joy painting. But it is work. So don't be surprised if you're tired. I am going to let this go. I will have to take a look at it from a distance later, but it's pretty well done. And I want to show you about glazing. I need to make this a little more subtle, the transition with the clouds, but I will do that later. Okay, definitely have to get to glazing. So let's move that out of the way.
Okay.
Bring this painting up. Okay. So glazing is the process by which, and it's not great to glaze on a palette knife painting. That's just the truth of it, because palette knife paintings leave a lot of ridges. But I'm going to show you how you can intensify a color. You take a little bit, Tara, if we can move to my palette for a second, please. Okay, I took a little bit of solvent and I'm going to take a tiny touch of phthalo blue, and that's got a lot of green. So let's take a little bit of the Prussian and a little bit of the cobalt. And this is going to become a glaze. It's a really thin layer. And let's say I want more color in here. Look at that.
Wait, okay, do it again. Let's see.
We need the other screen to see on the.
Oh, I'm sorry. Tara, go back to the paintings, please.
I'm sorry, I'm just trying to jump back. Hold on. There we go.
Yeah, I just got too much paint on my brush. Hold on. Okay, so I'm going to glaze into, look at that.
Right, okay, let's see.
Look at how much more vibrant that bluish color is becoming. This is glazing. Okay, I can glaze pink into the clouds. Let's say I want to glaze into the sky and get the sky deeper. You can selectively glaze parts of your painting. I'm using a super soft brush. But do you see how much more intense the color is getting? Can people see that, or is it not showing?
I can't see it.
Uh-oh.
Cynthia, are you doing this over dry paint? And
Oh, it has to be over dry paint.
great, that's what I thought. And what is the solvent you're using?
Well, this is my same Gamsol Galkid mix. Okay, here, I'm gonna glaze there. I'm gonna glaze. What I will do, Tara, I will send you tonight an email with the unglazed painting and the glazed painting. So those people who couldn't really see it on the computer, can see the difference in life. But
Great, thank you. That would be great. And I can email that out to everybody tomorrow.
That would be great. Thank you. So that's what I will do. I will send everybody or I'll send Tara an email. So I'm going to glaze some purple into here. My son is a painter and does layers and layers and layers of glazes. If you look up Ian Marion, you can see how vibrant, how intense the colors are. And he achieves that intensity by glazing. In between each layer of glazing, you have to let it dry.
So he taught you a few things.
No, I'm the one who told him to glaze.
Of course.
And of course, he's such a slow, sort of obsessive painter that it's killed his career.
You told me that. It takes forever to paint.
Yeah. Yeah. It'll take him 6 months to do a painting.
Oh my God.
Right. So you can't earn a living if it takes that long to paint. But I will send this. I'm going to get a clean brush and I will glaze some light into the sky. Find my clean brush. Here it is. Because not only can you glaze and deepen a color, you can lighten a color by adding a light glaze. So let's say I want to get a little bit more pink in the sky, into the clouds. Whoops. Not the sky, into the clouds. Now I am exaggerating it a bit, hoping that people can see. Okay. So yeah, Tara will send you a photo of the before and after glazing. And all I'm doing is taking a brush that's been dipped in solvent with a tiny touch of paint and adding that extra layer of color on my painting. Yeah, you'll see when Tara sends you the images how much effect the glazing can have, but it has to be done on a dry painting. It's an old technique. I mean, Rembrandt would glaze. You know, it is not a new technique. It's a studio painter technique. You can do it if you're painting acrylics, plein air, because they dry so quickly. All right. Any questions? And please,
thank you.
it's Cynthia Rosen art at gmail.com. If you want to send me your paintings, if you want to just go to my Facebook page, tomorrow I'll post, or tonight, I'll post the image I just did, if I see if it's any good. And tomorrow you can add under it. So,
Cynthia, I've got a couple of new questions for you.
okay, good.
One, do you leave some of the canvas to show through?
Yes, some of the orange. You can see it here, 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 little tiny bits there, here, here, up here, down here. I do. I like to. I like the way, it's partly why besides the fact that molecules move around and I want them to bounce against the orange, I like that it allows for breathing space in my mind. It doesn't tighten the painting up so that it tells every story. Okay. I refer to it as breathing space for the viewer.
Great. And when you're using the palette knife, if it takes longer to dry, how long are you waiting on the oils?
No, I hold my breath when I go to these events and you have to hang your painting up the same day or 2 days later. I hold my breath. I try to get the newest painting hung up high so somebody's not rubbing against it with a pocketbook or a shirt. Okay, there is that worry, but the Gal Kit helps the painting dry faster. And it's odd because it depends on the humidity. I mean, you can have a painting. I've had a painting in Annapolis dry and get sticky by the next day. I had that happen in Atlanta, and I've had other paintings take a week. It really depends on the humidity in the air. Okay, if it's dry, even if it, you know, if it's a hot dry, that painting's going to dry really quickly. And certain colors dry faster than others, but you know, the colors are not all the same. The colors, the white, and surprisingly, I had a color, I don't carry black paint, but it was a mixture of phthalo and purple dioxazine, and it took almost a week to dry in Vermont. In Arizona, the paintings will dry overnight.
And Cynthia, can you recommend an alternative product to Gamsol?
A lot of people use liquid. I have the solvent-free gel. Where does the person live who's asking?
That is an excellent question. If you can jump back in. I'm sorry, I don't see your name. I just see your phone number. Oh, Canada.
Okay, so it depends. The solvent-free gel. Actually, there was somebody from Canada.
I can actually answer that.
Sent them the picture of the paint for the palette knife. Okay.
I can actually answer that. I'm from Canada.
Okay, great.
I actually just found this out the other day because I was having trouble finding it, and then I went to a store, and a store that used to carry it didn't anymore. Apparently, the labeling regulations in Canada decided that the labeling was not up to what Canada wants in terms of what the chemical ingredients are. And so they gave every art store a list of products by Gamble that cannot be sold until they update their labeling.
Wow. Okay, so
you can't get Gal Kit, anything like that anymore.
yeah. So do you use walnut oil with turpentine? Do you use liquid? What do you use?
Well, it just happened. This just happened recently, so I didn't apply from before.
Okay. My son paints with liquid. Okay. There are, I mean, I don't like the lavender smell. There's a product that's supposedly natural that has a lavender oil in it. I don't like that. You can use, I don't know if you can get Japan dryer if you're trying to dry your paintings faster. You could use, you know, the old traditional. What I did use when I painted back in the 70s was Stand Oil, Turpenoid, well, it was turpentine back then, and Damar or linseed oil. They're all the old mixes that we used to use. And then Gamblin came out with what was a bit more supposedly solvent-free and less toxic. So that's interesting that, you know, they're not labeling good enough for Canada. But if there is a site called Wet Canvas, which is a fabulous informational site for painters. You can go to Wet Canvas and see if there are recommendations. And you can actually contact Gamblin and tell them. I mean, they may say to use the solvent-free. I can use solvent-free gel. If Canada allows that, that works. And you probably don't have the same kind of heat issues that, you know, I'd have in standing in the sun plein air painting in Florida or in Vermont. That's where I have a problem with the solvent-free gel getting too slippery. But I would contact Gamblin and say, do you have a recommendation? And they should be able to fix their labeling pretty quickly. But yeah, you know, the old traditionals, I have a friend who lives in Canada. I mean, I can ask her what she uses. And so whoever that is, send me an email and I can ask Luella what she uses and then get back to you. As I said, the other option is contact Gamblin directly and look on wet canvas. But, you know, I don't know if you'd have a problem. Same issue with their solvent-free gel or
Hey,
not.
Cynthia, it's just about 7 o'clock. So if there's any
Okay.
last remarks you want to make, or if anybody has any more questions.
Any other questions, anyone? Okay, well, thank you all for joining. And as I said, send either email or tomorrow I'll get the image up on Facebook. So
You
you've
want
got
us to send the image?
Cynthia Rosen art@gmail.com.
Okay.
Yes, and I will email everybody tomorrow once I get the images from Cynthia as well. And feel free to shoot me an email anytime if you have any questions or comments, or if you just want to say hi. I love hearing from everybody, and I will make sure that all of your questions and comments will get back to Cynthia as well.
Thank you.
Oh, yes, that's the other thing is feel free to, I'm not going to send out a survey again. I've done that before, but feel free if there's anything you want to know, I didn't cover, you want information on, or say, hey, I didn't like the way you did such and such. Feel free to send it my way.
Yes, and everyone, the
It helps.
video will be downloaded and converted. My tech guys will be working on it. It usually takes them a few days, and I should be able to have that out to you guys by early next week.
All right, well, thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much, everybody. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you soon. Bye-bye.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Take
Bye.
care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.